What if an entire society didn't collapse with a bang, but with a silence so complete it looked like they simply walked off the edge of the map? You sail to Greenland. You follow the fjords where farms once clung to the grass. You find stone walls, ruined by time but unmistakably human. You find a church. You find a few bones. And then nothing. No final message. No mass grave. No obvious battlefield. Just an island that kept its shape while its people vanished from history. So what happened to the Norse in Greenland? It starts like a survival story that shouldn't work. Around the year 985, Erik the Red leads settlers from Iceland to Greenland. Not because Greenland is welcoming, but because it's available. Along the southwestern coast, sheltered fjords create narrow pockets of pasture. The Norse bring cows, sheep, goats. They build longhouses of stone and turf. They cut hay, they trade. And for a while, it looks stable. Archaeologists find hundreds of farm sites. They find evidence of an organized society with a bishopric at Garthar and churches scattered through the settlements. They find imported goods, European pottery, glass, metalwork, even a famous Walrus ivory chess piece style that hints at long-distance commerce. That's the first strange thing. This wasn't a lost tribe. It was connected. It was known. Greenland appears in medieval records. Icelandic annals mention voyages. The Norwegian crown claims authority. The church collects tithes. In 1126, a bishop is appointed specifically for Greenland. You don't do that for a place that's already dying. Then you look at what they were actually doing to survive, and the mystery sharpens. They weren't just farming. They were hunting seals. They were fishing. They were exploiting a unique Arctic resource, walrus ivory. In medieval Europe, ivory is prestige. It becomes croziers, reliquaries, decorative pieces. And Greenland sits near walrus hunting grounds. If you imagine a lifeline connecting this remote colony to the rest of the world, it's carved from tusk. But the island doesn't stay the same. The climate shifts. Starting in the 1200s and intensifying into the 1300s and 1400s, the North Atlantic cools. This period is often called the Little Ice Age, though it's not a single event and it doesn't hit everywhere equally. Still, in Greenland, even small temperature changes matter. Shorter summers mean less hay. More sea ice means harder travel. Storms get worse. A farm society on the edge of viability starts to wobble. Now add the second unsettling fact. The Norse are not alone. The Inuit ancestors of the Thule people expand across the Arctic and reach Greenland. They have technologies built for this world. Kayaks, dog sleds, harpoons, flexible clothing. They can hunt whales and seals more efficiently. They can move with the seasons. The Norse see them. The sagas call them skrælingr, a vague term for outsiders. There are hints of conflict. There are hints of trade, but the details are foggy. What's clear is that two very different survival strategies occupy the same changing island. And then the records start thinning out. There's a wedding in 1408 at the Church of Hvalsey, recorded in Iceland. It's often treated like a last postcard from a doomed place. After that, the written sources go quiet. European ships visit less. The colony becomes harder to reach. Norway is hit by the Black Death in the mid-1300s, weakening institutions and trade networks. Demand shifts in Europe. Elephant ivory becomes more available again through other routes. Walrus ivory may lose value. The lifeline frays. You can feel the tension building because every factor seems survivable on its own. A colder climate, harder trade, new neighbors, political turmoil far away. But stacked together, they start to look like a slow trap. And then the physical evidence whispers something even stranger. In the Western settlement, archaeologists find signs that the farms were abandoned earlier than the Eastern settlement. The Western settlement seems to disappear by the 1300s, not in a blaze, just emptied. In the Eastern settlement, some farms show changes in diet over time. More marine food, more seals. That sounds like adaptation. That sounds like learning. But other clues hint at strain. Cattle are expensive in a cold land. They need hay. They need barns. If winters lengthen, keeping cows becomes a gamble. Some researchers have argued the Norse held onto European-style farming and identity even as conditions demanded flexibility. Not stupidity, pride and habit, the human things that make you keep doing what used to work. Now you dig deeper, and the coincidences get weird. Greenland's Norse settlements sit right where the North Atlantic can suddenly lock up with ice. Sea ice can block roots. It can also change ecosystems. Seals and fish patterns shift. A society depending on seasonal cycles can be broken by a few years of bad timing. Then there's the odd fact that you find very little evidence of violent destruction. No widespread burned layers, no fortifications built in desperation. If there was a massacre, it left an unexpectedly light footprint. If there was a war, it didn't echo loudly in the ground. So the mind starts offering darker, simpler answers. Did they starve? Did pirates raid them? Did the Inuit drive them out? Did everyone catch a disease? Did they all sail away and vanish at sea? The case is a perfect magnet for conspiracy because the ending is missing. But qualified people have been investigating this for a long time, and the story they've pieced together is more complicated and more human. Archaeologists like Jette Arneborg have studied Norse sites and Inuit-Norse contact. Zooarchaeologists examine animal bones to track diet changes. Paleoclimatologists use ice cores and sediment records to reconstruct past temperatures and sea ice. Scholars debate the role of trade and politics, using medieval documents and shipping patterns. A major influence on popular thinking was Jared Diamond's book Collapse, which presented the Greenland Norse as an example of a society that failed to adapt, clinging to cattle and European identity until it was too late. But many specialists argue that picture is too simple. Newer research suggests the Norse did adapt in some ways, increasing marine hunting and adjusting their economy. The debate itself is part of the mystery. The evidence supports multiple stories at once. And now, near the point where your suspicion feels like it's about to become certainty, the narrative turns. Because the dominant scientific explanation is not a single dramatic event, it's not a secret genocide, it's not a sudden apocalypse. It's attrition. Most experts today lean toward a mix of pressures: climate cooling, economic isolation, shifting trade value, and a fragile farming system pushed beyond its limits. As sea ice increased, ships from Europe visited less often. That meant less iron, less timber, fewer luxury goods, fewer reasons to stay connected. Walrus ivory may have brought less return. Political changes in Norway and the broader North Atlantic reduced support. Meanwhile, the environment demanded more Arctic specialization. In that framework, the disappearance starts looking like a series of choices made under pressure. A family leaves one farm and moves closer to better hunting. A few households take a ship to Iceland and never come back. A community shrinks until it can't maintain a church, can't support a bishop, can't replace boats. People don't vanish, they disperse. And the evidence that contradicts the more sensational theories is real. If there had been mass slaughter, you would expect more trauma on skeletons, more signs of sudden burning, more chaotic abandonment. If everyone starved in place, you might expect bodies, not empty farms. If a plague wiped them out, you might expect at least some record in connected Norse worlds, though silence is not proof. But this is where certainty slips again. Because attrition is a soft explanation, and soft explanations leave gaps. Why didn't they adopt more Inuit technology if it worked so well? Maybe they did, and it just didn't preserve well archaeologically. Organic materials vanish. Cultural exchange can be subtle, or maybe social barriers were too strong. Identity can be a survival tool, but it can also be a cage. And what about contact with the Inuit? Some evidence suggests limited exchange. There are Norse objects found in Inuit contexts and vice versa, but it's hard to tell if that means trade, scavenging, or something after conflict. Written sources are sparse and biased. Archaeology gives you fragments, not conversations. Then there's the sea itself. The North Atlantic is not a road, it's a filter. It selects against the unlucky. If the last big attempt to leave ended in a shipwreck, the ocean would erase the evidence almost perfectly. If people moved north to hunt and then died in storms or ice, the landscape would swallow the traces. Even the climate story has nuance. The Little Ice Age was real, but it wasn't uniformly catastrophic every year. Some years could be decent. The Norse lasted for centuries in Greenland. That endurance matters. It suggests competence, not foolishness. So you're left in a gray zone that feels uncomfortable, because it mirrors how real endings usually happen. Not with a final scene, but with a slow reduction in options. The Norse in Greenland may have been trapped between two worlds, too European to fully become Inuit, too isolated to remain European, too invested in farms and churches to become a mobile hunting society overnight, but also too resourceful to simply collapse without trying. And maybe that's the point. When you ask, what happened to them? You're really asking why some ways of life can't survive a shifting world, even when the people inside them are intelligent, tough, and desperate. You can picture the last winter in a half-empty fjord, a church that still stands but doesn't fill, a shoreline where the ice arrives earlier than it used to, a decision that feels temporary, one more season, one more hunt, one more voyage. History loves clean endings. Reality loves messy departures. And if you listen closely to Greenland's silence, it doesn't sound like a mystery designed to be solved. It sounds like a warning that sometimes whole civilizations don't die. They simply stop being possible.